The U.S. Supreme Court's decision last year to eliminate a nationwide right to abortion was a moment of triumph for conservatives who had labored for 5 decades to overturn the 1973 Roe v. Wade decision. Nearly 24 states controlled by Republicans have since imposed new limits on abortion. But the issue has also become a political liability for Republicans. Here's how the issue is likely to play out in 2024. In the wake of the Supreme Court decision, a lot of states controlled by Republicans have imposed new limits, including total bans or near total bans in a number of places. And so there are tens of millions of women who, up until 2022, had enjoyed the same kind of access across the country. Now you've got a situation where essentially some states have unfettered access to abortion as they did under Roe, and other states have essentially banned the procedure. The new restrictions have caused a lot of confusion for women who are seeking access to abortions. So in some cases, women are traveling, sometimes hundreds or even thousands of miles out of state to find a clinic that can legally perform the procedure. In other cases, it's led to a lot of legal battles where there are women that are claiming they have been denied necessary health care to preserve their health, for example, in situations where the pregnancy is posing a risk to their safety. And so that's something that we've seen play out at the court level in a number of different states, including in places like Texas. Abortion is freedom! Polling has been pretty consistent in showing that a majority of Americans believe abortion should be legal in all or most cases. Where it gets a little more complicated is when you start drilling down into specifics. So, for example, Reuters Ipsos polling has showed that more than 40% of Americans are in favor of a ban on abortions past 15 weeks, which is a limit that some Republicans have advanced as kind of a compromise position. For the first half of 2022, the conventional political wisdom was that Democrats were in for a real drubbing. President Biden's approval ratings were pretty anemic. Inflation was still a major concern for Americans. And generally speaking, everyone expected Republicans to kind of have an enormous sweeping victory in November. But then the Dobbs decision came down, and we saw evidence that what had been a pretty big enthusiasm gap between Republican and Democratic voters essentially disappeared. We saw an enormous surge of activism, a lot of young voters, a lot of women voters, very fired up about the issue. And what happened was a Republican wave that had been expected really turned into more of a ripple, right? So Republicans, they failed to take control of the Senate. They took control of the House, but with an exceedingly narrow majority. We're still nearly a year away from the presidential election, and so obviously a lot can change. It seems pretty clear that the economy is going to be an enormous concern for voters next year. I think if you're the Republicans, you're hoping that carries the day, because polling suggests that voters are generally pretty dissatisfied with the way President Biden has handled the economy. But Democrats are going to do their best to keep abortion at the forefront of the conversation. It's become very evident over the last couple of years that abortion is a real problem for Republicans, that they're on the wrong side of the issue when it comes to public opinion. And the more that Democrats can make the presidential election about abortion, the better off they're going to be.